So it's weird. The highest diagnosed demographic is white males. Females on the spectrum tend to mask better than males. So diagnosis isn't so forthcoming. It's 1 female to every 4 males. Julia, 2 atypical, and then the good doctor, Billy from Power Rangers. Hispanics and other people of color have barriers that prevent us from getting diagnoses, such as language semantics, differing concerns over pediatric milestones, lack of adequate health care, etc. These barriers in real life do play to the big screen, but they're not there. When portrayed accurately, media can be beautiful art. Females on this, oops, that's the wrong part. Media has the magic to make people feel like they aren't alone and has the power to sway perspectives and takes great responsibility to wield this power. Fictional shows can bring to light important topics and introduce conversations that otherwise wouldn't have happened and can divide communities or unite them. In other words, media is integral to keeping us connected as a species as we expand our social consciousness. How media portrays autistic people influences how society views autistic people. Reactions on TV to our idiosyncrasies provide subconscious examples to the masses about how to react to us. Because of this context, it's important that autistic people be adequately represented on TV. I saw an episode of The Good Doctor where he kisses the girl he likes and then he immediately goes to throw up. Watching that scene, I instantly started laughing because I've done that before. I went from the lowest of the lows to the highest of the highs in a split second. And that emotional jump literally made me puke. It was like a good puke. And while it was embarrassing for me in real life, like, my warrior toothbrush, I love seeing that scene on TV. I love seeing it on the show. The important thing, though, is, I related. I know exactly that feeling, that emotional jump. And it was only one of a few times that I related to that character's lifestyle. He's a doctor, not a doctor. The whole picture of autism on TV is very colorless and masculine. And you know what else is missing? Facts. Interesting stories. Depth. Our emotions. The portrayal of autistic people in the media doesn't show the real struggles, feelings, and thoughts of the typical autistic adult. In fact, so little is known about the typical autistic adult. Why is the average lifespan of an autistic person 36 years old?
Oh my God, I'm gonna die next year. What?
I know, it's coming up for me too in less than 10.
Whoa.
I'm scared.
Yeah, me too.
What happens to us when we turn 18? Or if our parents die and can't take care of us? Or what happens if we have family members that can't deal with our outbursts? And psych units aren't an option. What happens when a young autistic adult decides they want to be independent and their parents don't think they're ready? What channel are those shows on? Autistic symptoms are hardly a full, rounded picture of the typical autistic adult. I know I'm not just my symptoms. Listening super intently anytime someone speaks to me because words get mixed up in my head and almost constantly give me an incorrect understanding. Refocusing my mind to the task in front of me for hours. Oh, okay, see, refocusing back to the task on hand, dealing with social consequences of forgetting minor pleasantries, invisible struggles. And although the personal struggle is invisible sometimes, the mental gymnastics takes a physical toll. I want to see characters who have to decipher incoming social interactions at their wits' end, unable to leave a situation because they understand the consequences of leaving. Inner monologues and voiceovers are great. Unconsidered struggles of the day-to-day managing of the typical adult lifestyle. My husband and I eat paper plates and we don't eat them. we use paper plates, plasticware, and plastic cups. We eat out almost every single night. This is mostly because I hate washing dishes and cooking. And I have a deeply ingrained dislike for appliances that started when I was 7 and doesn't seem to, I don't think it's gonna go away. Sorry. Cleaning every day, working full time, maintaining finances, planning for the future. It's all really, really hard. I can't deal with everything all the time. And some days I come home from work and I sleep until the next morning. The exhaustion is real. And funnily enough, it's also missing from the media. I want to see stories of autistic people of color having adventures that don't center around their autism, but their culture. Shows and documentaries that shed light on how culture can influence autistic people. I'm Spicy Latina. How can I be a Spicy Latina if I'm autistic?
Hey,
Here's the thing. Let me tell you. One of the defining characteristics of autistic people tend to lack social skills. And some people think I'm difficult to deal with. Because
too emotional, perhaps too much?
Perhaps not enough. I'm blunt. I'll make jokes to make you feel better if you feel bad. All I know is that all I need to know is that you feel bad. Don't ask me to guess or infer. I furrow my eyebrows when I'm concentrating, and people often mistake that for anger or disagreement. My impatience aids this misunderstanding. One time I was at the doctor's office, and I had been waiting there for an hour, and it was a mental health appointment. So, already I was crabby, and there was a lady, she's walking around. She seemed to be in a hurry too, and I didn't recognize her, so I asked her, "Excuse me, do you work here?" Just like that, and that kind of tends to put people on the offensive, like, on the defensive, like, no, I don't work here. Just trying to see if maybe she left some paperwork on the desk. And no, she didn't. So I started getting, I got mad at this strange lady. I didn't even know, yelling at her about HIPAA and how I didn't want her looking at my paperwork if it was on the desk. And, that kind of abrasiveness isn't really on TV. So, let's make movies and that shift the perspective and show how autistic adults parent, both autistic kids and neurotypical kids, because we have them. I don't, but I know some of us do. And, how autistic people mask social skills. Like, what does that look like from the inside? The progression of meltdowns in adults from the inside. Like, to you, I might just be cranky and in a bad mood, but what's going on with me? You know what I mean? Like, comorbidities that affect us, media that shows what's going on in our minds and reflects our beauty and our definition of empathy, but also stays true to the difficulties we face every day. And that's the kind of media that autistic people deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arianne. I found your humor very relatable. I wonder why that is. And I observed so many interesting things in what you point out. This whole sort of binary, or the sort of division between see, I'm blanking right now. This whole division between autistic minds and autistic bodies is problematic. And I'm talking about that in the sense that our embodied expression tends to be skewed often, not only in media, but I think it's sort of a reflection of our societal understandings and beliefs about autism. And the intersection of autism and race and gender expression, as well as sexual orientation, is a big deal, right? So I totally resonated with what you said about diagnosis and sort of diagnostic systems and how they miss autistic women, especially autistic women of color and otherwise women identifying autistic people and transgender autistic people of color. How do we make it this far without knowing, right? I also found out I was autistic only 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And one of the hardest experiences for me has been external denial. So when I'm trying to come to terms with my own identity and realize that I've been masking my whole life. Another trait that I see that is somewhat common amongst us, women identify autistic people, is camouflaging. We're really good at imitating what's around us in a way that is sort of like brings the other aspect to it, which is this emotional labor that we carry onto ourselves. The kind of labor that we do to assimilate because we feel and understand that we are not part, quote unquote, of the collective. So it is a survival skill that then sort of backfires, or not sort of, it backfires onto us when we're trying to seek a diagnosis and services. That's been my experience. And so those kinds of things that happen to us in the everyday are obviously not portrayed in the media. Like our difficulty with getting services and diagnosis is people who have been diagnosed late in life as adults, and add to that the identification of the gender expression and the intersections of ethnicity and race, and you're erased. And that sort of invisibility that gets projected from the outside as well is internalized, as much as any form of ableism is internalized. We internalize that, and then there's this dissonance, right? This confusion that we have versus what we feel we are or think we are, and then when we start to encounter all this information around autistic culture and autism, and we start relating so much and being like, yes, 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 oh my God, yes, you're like me, we're like each other. And then the outside world is like, you can possibly be autistic. You are getting a PhD, or you work, or you, quote unquote, talk. So there is this conflation and this ignorance around autism that is, of course, reproduced by medicine, therapeutic approaches to autism, and then all that stuff gets totally scripted into the media. So whatever you see in The Good Doctor and Atypical, and people who are playing autistic characters who are not autistic. That's another big thing. I mean, I don't know if you've seen The Theory of Everything representing Stephen Hawking, and then there's another one, ¿cómo se llama? I don't remember. But anyway, so many characters that are non-disabled playing disabled people. The Shape of Water, for instance, is a recent one. And so of course we don't identify. I mean, it's like a person who's trying to get into our embodied experience who is not us. And it's like people would argue like, oh, but actors, they all do that for the roles. And it's like, you know how many autistic actors are out there? If you drop your stereotypes, you know how many autistic actors are there? You know how many deaf actors are there? You know how many disabled transgender actors are out there that are not portrayed in the media. So those experiences get watered down and sort of like represented through this Hollywood-esque lens, which is also like a watered down of everything. Of course, disability, of course, race, ethnicity, gender expression, sexual orientation, so on and so forth. No? So I was wondering what you think about that. And then we can open it up for a discussion.
I think you made a lot of great points. There definitely needs to be more on as I think the closest word that I can find it right now in pullable vocabulary is like subtext, right? The background of what goes on in media, like, you know, how they get those people, how they get those storylines, how they get all those things, you know what I mean? Like where they go for their information. And, you know, everybody likes talking to like the same person that is like, this person has always given me the right information, so I'm gonna go there, even if that person doesn't know anything about autism. Exactly. And so that person, you know, ego's been stroked. It's like, oh yeah, I know things. Yeah, sure. Autism, Google real quick. And, you know, and so then you have actors like I mentioned, you know, I was in a play once in high school where I was playing, you know, a waitress, and like her whole bit was that she was sad. Like she was she owned the waitress thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Reimers of Eldridge. She owned the place and she had a young boyfriend who leaves her. And, you know, like I had never been in that situation before. I was like 16. So, you know what I mean? Like what did I do? I imagined like, well, how would I feel if I was a 40-year-old lady with a young boyfriend who like his boyfriend ran off with his pregnant other girlfriend? I would be sad, but I would still have to work. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, like when that's the kind of process that you know, actors go through. Like, what would I be like if I was experiencing if the character was experiencing overload? Well, I know I've been to a rave, so you know what I mean? It kind of like you draw on experiences that aren't really like it at all to try and recreate something, and end up making what's the painting? Monet, when it looks pretty from far away and up close looks like good. It doesn't look good. So you're making like this like kind of bits and pieces together, like different autistic stereotypes with different actors trying to put in like what they think autism is versus what it actually is to somebody who's autistic.
Definitely. And I think the other part of that too is like it's totally like related to what you just said in terms of like stereotypes, like this sort of like translation, quote unquote, that comes from like medicine books that gets sort of socialized, and that's the information that society gets about autism. And there is no or there has not been an attention placed on autistic self-representation, because we are believed to be incapable of a certain, like a list of things, right? And when we, quote unquote, exceed those and don't seem to be matching what the textbook says, like, no, you're not autistic. No, you're not a 4-year-old white boy who does not have access to speech. Oh, you're not white, you're not a boy, you're not, oh, you speak. I once got told by a medical professional that I had beautiful facial expressions, and therefore I could not be autistic. I wonder where, like, the difficulties of, but this is something though, like we find it hilarious and upsetting, but this is something that you could probably relate to. Or even if we sit here together and say we're autistic, you're like, oh, wait, what? And this is the sort of the response that I get from people. It's like, wait, what? And that causes an affect in me that's like stop. It's like you get like stuck, and you were like, I am who, and then you spend the next 6 months like trying to figure out what was it that you did or said, and repeating it in loops in your brain, right? So I guess the point that I want to make is that this is not only like, that this doesn't exist without a context, that is not just media reproducing this is all of us as societies reproducing this ideas. And sort of like dismantling what people think autism is, it is a dismantling of a fundamental ideological belief, and that is scary for people, especially for, let's say, parents of autistic children who are not autistic themselves or don't know they're autistic themselves, trying to frantically reproduce this idea of a normalized existence. They want the best for their child, and they will follow what they're told is best for their child. So you see how this is a reproductive sort of chain. It doesn't just happen. And so in that sense, we can all affect how autism is portrayed and represented. And Arianne's presentation is a great example of like making those links between personal lived experience, mediatic sort of like representations or media representations, and everyday life, and how that stuff becomes reproduced. And we just get so comfortable. Society gets so comfortable thinking they know what autism is. In general, they get so comfortable thinking they know what disability is. So our voices aren't really needed because we're not the experts. Actually, we are, quote unquote, the real experts. That's a book on autism. So if do you have anything to add before we move to questions? No? Okay. Questions? Not everyone at the same time, please. Federico. Oh. Okay. Do we have a circulating microphone? No. Do you mind coming here? I can help. Pero no sé si se suelta de aquí. Ah, es que hay otro.
What do you feel is a good representation or the best representation of autistic people we do right now?
You know, honestly, I really liked Billy from the Power Rangers because he talked a lot. I like it when they talk a lot because like I talk a lot. And then, you know, I also like it whenever, you know, they're quiet for really long periods of time because I'm quiet for long periods of time. So it's just like, I don't know. I like that whole aspect. And also, honestly, I did find certain parts of Atypical to be funny from when I was in high school. I too felt like a boy, like outside. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, trying to fit in and not knowing like why. You know, like I just kind of like, found a girl that I thought was cool, and I hung out with her until she told me to stop hanging out with her. So, like, and then I learned things from her on how to be cool, and met people who were less cool than me, and all of a sudden, like, hey, I'm in. You know? Yeah, messy. So yeah, I thought that aspect was funny in the main character in Atypical, that he has his journal where he writes down, you know, he asks this girl like hello, no, he asks the guy, right? What do you do? You were making out with another girl last week. Why are you making out with this girl this week? Like, how did you do that? And like the girl is like made to feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, and the guy's just like making fun of him, and it's really awful. Like it's funny that question is asked because, you know, I've done surveys. Like, did I exchange just now that between me and you, did that make you feel uncomfortable? How do you feel about that? You know, and then the person is taken off guard, like, well, actually, I am feeling uncomfortable. Like, oh, I'm sorry, you feel uncomfortable. I won't do that anymore. Or like, no, actually, I thought it was funny. Like, okay, cool, we have the same sense of humor. Allow me to continue to make you feel uncomfortable while you laugh. So, you know, it kind of like it's sort of like, you know, there's just a little bit of all of it. You know, it's like it just kind of we just need more. We just need more.
Definitely more. I saw Federico. I saw your hand. Oh, there's somebody else I didn't see. Oh, please, thank you.
This is my height. Very good. So my question is, you mentioned, Arianne, that we don't, you know, they don't represent in the movies or shows how people really feel inside, in terms of like if you're really stressed or having a meltdown or something like that. What it looks like from the outside, they show, maybe. But what, you know, I think that you made a really good point that in society in general, nobody really has a good understanding of what you're feeling, and you're feeling a lot. I don't know if you can talk about that.
All of it.
One thing I was thinking of whenever I had mentioned inner monologues and voiceovers is because those go over as like those are going on as the other person's talking to you, and like if let's say for example I said something that made somebody mad and it's not a somebody I want to make mad. Sometimes I make people mad and I don't care and I'll go on and I'll fight because I'm spicy Latina, but. Other
But you're
times,
autistic, though.
but so other times I'm like I want to get into like arguing with you. I'm tired. I want to go home, and I didn't mean to, to start anything. So like I guess it's all like just running together. Like, oh, okay, this person's mad. I can see it in their face. Like they're breathing. Like they've got like a snarl right here. Snarl, snarl, snarl. Okay, snarl means calm down. Calm down. Calm them down. Okay, so you remain calm. Calming yourself down will help them be calm. Okay, the snarl's kind of going away, but now eyes are narrowing. So I must have said something wrong. Okay, well, this is an understanding thing. Okay, well, okay, what are you talking about right now? Okay, all right, what's the misunderstanding? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. What? How did you think that? What do you mean it's from what I said? Like, so, and then, it's just kind of that in circles. Yeah, and then also like blood pressure starts going up. I start pulling my hair. My glasses are broken because I was cleaning them really aggressively because they needed to be clean. And like a Thanksgiving dinner, I was nervous. Oh, Grandma, that's funny. And I broke the steak knife, and my grandpa made a joke about like how I need to get like industrial knives. So it's not something that you can you can't. Just seeing on TV, you don't know that I'm so like nervous that my strength is showing and I'm breaking steak knives like I'm on like World's Strongest Man. But it's there. So I guess it's just kind of the way that it is for me. It's just everything is going on all at once, all at the same time, and every once in a while I'll catch what you say, and 90% of the time that I catch, it's caught.
I can speak to that as well from another perspective. And I guess I'll preface that by saying that there is kind of like a saying in the autistic community, which is not one, but I'll say the US autistic community, which goes, when you meet one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So whereas like while I resonate with everything you've said about media, I am an entirely different autistic person. Can you believe that? So we are not blueprints of human, like of a certain type of human expression. I really avoid the word behavior because I think that's a total pathology. I will say responses. All human beings and all non-human animals respond to their circumstances, right? And the environment. But if let's say somebody who's not autistic has a fit, quote unquote, and I have one, mine is behavior and theirs is a response.
Yes, no, I love it.
So for me, you know how the word autistic comes from like the prefix aut, A-U-T, which means, and sort of like these kind of word that we've come up with is for the opposite of that, which I don't necessarily like, is holistic, autistic, holistic. I find it combative and kind of like divisionist, but that sort of idea that we are sort of into ourselves, it's kind of a fallacy in the sense that, have you thought about why we are quote unquote so shielded, which is not true for every autistic person either? It's because we feel it all. We feel too much. So this ideas about autistic not being empathetic are actually, forgive my French, bullshit. we develop mechanisms to shield our bodies who feel it all so intensely that makes some of us makes like look like we are all about ourselves or that we cannot engage, and that's not my case. Actually, my case, I do feel it all, but my response to that is that I engage too much, quote unquote, too much. So I get lost in the other person. I forget about myself. Like, it's not that the inner monologue isn't happening at that time, but I cannot keep track of it at that moment. So what happens for me is it happens post interaction. So I've spent, like I said before, weeks going over a certain interaction that I had with someone and perhaps thinking, what could have gone differently? What could I have said different? And this is agonizing. But people don't see that. People don't see, people only see it and understand it when I voice it. And so lately, like a few years, I guess, or a year or so, I've been really vocal about my needs, about my sensory needs, and I will not cater to other people. And before I would cater because that would make me more assimilate, and camouflage is part of like not
Drawing less attention.
exactly. And by drawing less attention to myself, I was like being like I was bullied as a kid, but then I became the it girl, kind of like similar to you or a popular person in high school because I don't know, it was a weird thing and it was kind of torturous.
It was those girls we hung out with.
There was the girls, yeah. And so whatever my point is that like the sort of like trajectory of our feels to the outside world is huge, but that becomes lost in translation because our temporality, or I don't want to speak so generally, my temporality as an autistic person is completely different from a non-autistic person, and sometimes a non-neurodivergent person, and so is my sense of space, for instance, and things that occur in space and time. Like, so see how different our experiences are, and we're both being told we can be autistic. So anyway.
I have a question in the back.
Can you use the microphone, please?
I'll stand by. I'm wondering, I'm deaf, and I applaud you for your bravery to speak about this. With deafness, deaf people who have autism, when they express their feelings, their things, do you have, I'm sorry, can you?
As a deaf person that has autism.
Can you speak
No,
in the
I
microphone,
can't hear.
please?
Okay, as a deaf person with autism, have they expressed their feelings regarding their daily living, what they're going through? Can you share anything regarding that? Have you heard anything from a deaf person? Have you met a person that is deaf with autism?
I haven't, but I haven't, no. My sister can, that's my experience.
Or any media?
Yeah, no, there's nothing. That's part of the problem, is that there isn't any kind of representation for deaf autistic people, for Black autistic people, for Hispanic autistic people, for blind autistic people, for it's just so white and able. Other than that, I mean,
Yeah, I would like to see more.
Of course.
I would like
Yeah.
to see more of that with people of color included with autism, not only the white males.
yeah,
Maybe in the future, we may see more of that.
yeah, that's our.
I've been told we have 2 minutes. I will take you in 1 sec. I'm responding also. So part of that conundrum, right, for the question that you were asking before was that the intersectional aspect of it is complex because whenever you bring disability in any way, you're already experiencing some sort of marker, outside imposed marker onto you. Now add race and ethnicity to that. Add gender expression or sexual orientation. Add citizenship status. Add religious affiliation. Add another disability. So it's like you're often juggling and choosing. What am I gonna say? Am I gonna say? So I always say politically, this is a political choice. I say, am I an autistic mestiza, feminist? You know, but these are labels, these are identities that you reclaim at each turn because I have privilege to do so. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not in a position where I will be physically threatened or, yes, emotionally threatened, but not physically abused, right? I can walk down the street and pass as a white person, which is totally dissonant for me because I'm everything but a white person. And I can pass as an able-bodied person. I live with chronic illness. Can people see that? No, they cannot. Can they now see that I'm autistic? Yes, for sure, because I'm very vocal about it. So the intersection of deafness on autism is not something that I've seen represented in the media. I've talked and discussed with a lot of deaf people about sort of our commonalities in terms of language struggles, especially for non-speaking autistics, and sort of the coalitional, I guess, politics that we can build around a very heavy verbal society that places all value on verbal literacy skills. And sort of how can we move toward sort of destabilizing those ideas about the inherent value of the spoken word. That's a commonality that I know exists between deaf culture and deaf people and some autistic people, definitely.
And and even language. There's I can't recall the source at the moment, but stories about immigrants who are deaf and autistic and don't speak English.
Yeah.
And they understand green cards to be little cards that allow them to live, and that's their understanding of green card, because nobody takes the time to explain to them the process. They're just like oh, this card and everything is to me, and that's it. And they're just like, okay, this card, here you go. Like, does this allow me to buy what I need? No? Okay, what about this one? Does this allow me to buy what I need? And the communication struggles. So yeah, the people take for granted the spoken word for sure, and even take for granted that underlying understanding that, like if you're making a mad face, not everybody could see that snarl I was talking about whenever I was going through trying to figure out if somebody's mad at me. Sometimes if I know for me, if I'm super emotional, especially if I've got tears in my eyes and stuff, I'm not looking at your face to see if you have a snarl, because my eyes are bleeding tears. So I'm crying, I don't see. So it's definitely one of those things that needs to be more focus needs to be put on it. There's more people need to speak out on it. More representation needs to be on TV. We need to hear more about this, as those people exist. And it's like she was saying earlier, they're erased. They become erased.
Federico, our last question.
So I would like see if you can discuss a little bit another stereotype there is about this community, which is there are people with high and low functioning autism that's been forced by medical and especially medical industry and special education industry, and without questioning what kind of abilities and privilege to create kind of hierarchies.
Do we have 10 more hours to discuss?
I don't know, maybe at the bottom.
And already in one sentence, high or low functioning is how well people think, like how well you can pass. It's how well do people think you're autistic? Yeah, you're a little autistic. You're high functioning. Like, do people you hit your head and you don't wait until you get home and you're in public? Oh, you're low functioning. Like, oh, you can't speak. You're low functioning. Like, what do you mean you've understood me this whole time? It does, it's just, it's garbage. I mean, I'm not gonna go so far as to say that it's all the same, because back to the whole, if you met on one autistic person, you met one autistic person. But the terms high functioning and low functioning, it's way too broad. That's why I call it a spectrum.
I have very strong views about that, and I'm not going to share them all for this, because I'll be here for hours, because that's my thing. I don't believe in the idea of a spectrum or spectra being unbiased. There's always a point of departure and a point of arrival, and those depend on geographical and historical location, cultural background, so on and so forth. Exactly. And if you want to think about media representations or people who are public, think about high, it hurts me even to say high and low functioning in this terms. Who remembers Rayman? Who remembers is the Dustin Hoffman playing Rayman? Who knows about Temple Grandin? Yeah? Place Temple Grandin as a high functioning person and place Dustin Hoffman or Raymond as a low functioning person. Is that real? Is that real life? Are you a little disabled or a lot disabled? Are you you know what I'm saying is everything else that's in between those two extremes of a stereotypical representation. I'm not saying those people do not exist. I'm saying the polarizing views, the polarizing sort of approaches that creates really breeds erasure for all of us who are in between. And an example of that, I think, would be Arianne and myself. So yeah, that's what I think about. And for special ed, I don't think I can open that kind of worms right now, but we'll talk.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.